Hello, hello. I am here to show you my first isolation creation image inspired by Jamie Beck. You have 5 of these due this week, one each day, so you should be doing or have done one today. Maybe you're a procrastinator and you're going to do them all in one day. I don't know. But I wanted to show you where I started, and I'm going to give you 2 examples. I'm going to give you an example of a self-portrait image, which is something that Jamie Beck does often, and I'm also, at some point this week, maybe Wednesday, going to give you a still life image example. I'm just waiting for me to have something in my house that's interesting to photograph. So hopefully tomorrow in our nice day, we can go take a walk and gather some cool things, and then I'll be able to make another image for you. So for this one, I took self-portraits, and I just wanted to go over my process and help you guys to inform your process in case you're going to include a self-portrait image, which I highly recommend. Okay, so first thing, for my first image, I was thinking about what I wanted the image to convey. So I wanted it to show kind of like the fast changing emotions that I have each day. I'm sure you guys are feeling it too. Maybe you're really overwhelmed and you go from really overwhelmed to thinking, okay, well, this is kind of a cool opportunity to have all this time at home with my family. And then maybe you go to feeling really super stressed, and maybe you go to being sad because you're missing out on things. So I just kind of wanted to show that like process of how quickly my emotions change throughout any given day. This has been pretty hard for me. There's a reason why I don't bring my kids to class with me, because they make it really hard for me to concentrate. So it's been sort of a juggle, and I've kind of like felt like some days on an emotional roller coaster, as I'm sure you guys feel too. So I wanted to be able to show that through my images, because remember, this whole project is about kind of showing this process of being isolated. So first I'm going to show you the images that I shot. Okay, so this is my first example for you, which is self-portrait. Here are my photos. So these are them all individually. A couple things that I'm just going to remind you of, but you should know based off of our last 10 rules refresher video. I thought about where I was going to go to take these pictures, so I made sure that I had a background that would photograph well, and then I also added some depth to my image by like putting greenery in the foreground. You can kind of see it up here in the front. It's blurred, but I think that it helps kind of frame out my image a little bit better. I also, maybe for the first time all of quarantine, did my hair and put makeup on. I styled myself. I'm wearing light colors because I wanted the images to be really light and airy. So that's another thing you're going to think about. You're not going to wear your, quarantine bumming it clothes. Like right now I'm wearing a Jurassic Park tank top. My hair is not done. So you're definitely going to think a little bit more about what you're wearing than maybe what you're currently wearing right now. So styling is definitely, a big thing. And one thing I want to talk about is that like your style of photography that you like may be very different than Jamie Beck's style. My style of photography is really, really different than her style. Hers is very like dark, and she oftentimes uses really, really high aperture numbers because she likes deep depth of field. My style is very much more like light and bright and airy, and I really like shallow depth of field. So my images don't look like her images, but the idea behind them is the same. And that's okay if your style or what you're drawn to is not her style at all. That's fine. If you love her style and you think it's really cool, then you can totally try to mimic it. Again, it's totally up to you, but I wanted to keep these images true to my own style as a photographer. Okay, so I made all these images, and then I went into Photoshop, and I had first envisioned all of the images coming together. Let me just go back to this slide for a second. All of the images coming together as this sort of like multiple exposure type situation. And I wanted to layer all of these different emotions together as a multiple exposure. So like how we did double exposure, but with 6 images. And I was working and I was playing, and I couldn't get the images to all show up with enough like prominence, where I'd get one to show up, but then like the other one would really fade into the background, and I wasn't liking the way that that was looking. So I decided then as an artist to shift gears. I recognized that something wasn't working and had to think of another way to convey my idea. This is something that you might have to do throughout this process. So you can see now that I made a GIF. I wanted my images to all like kind of flick between each other and show that like quick change in emotion. I wasn't able to do that through Photoshop. So I used an app called Giphy to make this GIF. It also allows you to export it as a video, because if you do decide to make a GIF, I don't know if we'll upload to Classroom, but you can export it as a video as well. So this is what I ended up making with my images, and this is my final piece of my isolation creation, is this GIF kind of just showing the quick change of emotion that I've been experiencing, at least. And then I wanted to just go over some details maybe of setting yourself up if you do decide to take a self-portrait. So I used a tripod, but maybe you didn't sign out a tripod, and that's fine. You can stack books up, you can grab pots from your kitchen, whatever, a chair you can put on a counter, whatever you need like to have a sturdy base for your camera. Make sure it's sturdy, then your camera's not going to fall off, but you want to make sure that it's at the height that you need. So it could be a little bit of a ghetto tripod hack if need be. And then you're going to use the self-timer, which you definitely already know how to do, but a little refresher if you're unsure. So there's some screen grabs here of the back of the camera. Remember that you can customize the self-timer in the setup menu. That's the little wrench, the orange wrench inside your menu. You can customize how many images it takes at a time. You definitely want to make sure it's taking, I think 9 is the highest amount, but you want to make sure it's taking a bunch of shots in a row so that you're not like running back and forth over and over again for just one image, okay? And then you can turn on the self-timer, which actually I can see. Hold on, let's see if I can minimize my little thing here, because let's see. Nope. Nope, that doesn't work either. But the little here it is. Little flying rectangle button right here that's circled. That is what you're going to press to set it to self-timer mode. Sorry about that little technical issue, but this is what it looks like right there. So you'll use that, to set your self-timer. You need to change it from single frame release mode to the little self-timer icon. Again, this is review. You should know how to do this. So those are your little setup details. And then the last thing is really thinking about the settings that you're using in order to accomplish the effect that you want. So there's a reason why we're using a camera and not a phone. A phone just makes you just press a button and it takes the picture for you. You really don't have any options as far as the settings of the photo. So in some of these images that I was taking, I really wanted to like move my head and get like the blur of my hair, feel like to get that like sort of like quick look in the image. So you can see if I go back to the GIF that there's one image where my hair is blurred, and I used a specific shutter speed in order to get that effect. So my focus was shutter speed when I was balancing my exposure triangle. So I want you to think about this. Like if shutter speed is important to you, important to what you want to say with your image, you want to make sure that you're setting your settings correctly so that you are using a shutter speed that helps to either blur or freeze motion if that's something that's a priority to you. Another priority to me was to have that shallow depth of field, so I made sure that my aperture was set accordingly. So these are things that as a photographer, you're always thinking about. Okay, so that's it. This is like kind of like a part 1. I will definitely do another video for a still life image. I wanted to kind of cover both bases in terms of Jamie Beck's work. So here's a little place to start if you wanted to do a self-portrait first. If you are working with still lives already, that's fine. I'm just going to give some tips and pointers once I work through the process myself. Okay, hope you guys are well.